Hello and welcome to Civil 1865. Here, we keep the people of America updated on all the action of the Civil War. I'm David Campbell, and today we have a special guest who was formerly imprisoned at the famously horrific Andersonville prison. So stay tuned. But first, breaking news. Andersonville lead commander Henry Wirz has now been found guilty of war crimes due to grotesque nature of the scene of the prison. He is set to be hung in Washington, November 10th, 1865. Now to our on-site interview with an actual survivor of the Andersonville prison, with our newscaster Maddie Miller. You're on, Maddie.
Thanks, David. I'm here with a prisoner from the Andersonville prison. He's here to tell us about his experience in the prison. To start off, what's your name and how did you end up here?
My name is Sam Paquette, and I arrived more recently. I was lucky compared to most of the men, and by lucky I mean I survived.
Could you tell us more of what it was like living there?
Well, yes. It was terrible. They rarely fed us, and when they did, there was nothing. It was nothing substantial, and certainly nothing good to eat. And it was also very, very cramped at the prison.
Why, yes, we have more data on that. We're back in the newsroom with David. He has the numbers. David, what are the numbers?
As always, Maddie, we got the numbers here back at Civil 1865. The largest amount of people ever imprisoned there at once was in August 1864. There was 33,000 men at one time. Crazy.
Are you familiar with Bruce Catton's article, Prison Camps of the Civil War?
Well, yes, I am.
Would you mind explaining the article to our viewers and possibly assessing the validity?
Certainly. I believe Catton's interpretation of Captain Wirz's hanging is absolutely correct. Captain Henry Wirz, the prison's commandant, was hanged after the war ended in 1865. Wirz was certainly a scapegoat because he paid for the sins of others. Not to say he wasn't a bad man, because he was, but it was a difficult situation to control. The administrative system of war prisons at the time was set him up for failure. All war prisons at the time had very poor conditions, but Andersonville just happened to be the worst of those prisons.
Catton mentioned something about the handling of the prisons based on a system of exchange. Would you tell us more about that system?
Sure, I'd be glad to. The exchange system was actually the reason I was lucky enough to make it out of the prison. During the war, there seemed to be some sort of gentleman's agreement that at certain times the North and South would exchange prisoners, and the exchange was based on a value system that was based on rank. For example, if the North were to want a colonel back, they would have to return a colonel or a large number of privates.
Wonderful description, Sam. I have a fun fact for you that you might not find interesting. It won't sound too fun, but I did some research and found that about 10 times as many people died in northern and southern prisons camps than did in the Battle of Gettysburg.
Not a huge fan of that fun fact, Maddie. I'm just thankful I wasn't one of those who was killed.
We got some breaking news here at Civil 1865, and let me tell you, it's juicy. We got a reenactment of the exchange of prisoners at Andersonville prison. So we're going to show you that right now. You got your guy?
Yeah, do you got your guy?
Yeah, my guy's right here.
Okay, my guy's right here. Come on up.
Get over to Confederacy.
Welcome back to the Confederacy. Get over to the Union.
Welcome back, sir.
Let's go.
Take this back. We're back at Civil 1865 studio after an interesting reenactment of an exchange. We're going to cut it back to Maddie and Sam on the scene. Take it away, Maddie.
Sam, would you be willing to give us a layout of the prison?
Sure. I don't want to bore you guys with all that stuff about the housing, but I'll skip right to the interesting stuff. So, there were these things that the prisoners would call pigeon roosts that were actually called sentry boxes. They stood along the stockade wall, which tended to be around 15 feet high, and they were located at every 90 feet in 90-foot intervals. And they were also, these places we called the deadline, which is exactly how it sounds. You cross the line and you get shot and die. The line was to prevent any prisoners from escaping over or tunneling under the wall.
Wow, interesting.
As you already know, we always have these statistics here at Civil 1865. Sentry boxes and the deadline certainly weren't the only things that killed people at Andersonville Prison. Of the 45,000 Union soldiers that were held prisoner at Andersonville, 13,000 died from disease, malnutrition, poor sanitation, overcrowding, or exposure to the elements. Truly amazing that you survived that, Sam. And now for a quick commercial break. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned, America.
Here in the Northern Union, we are home to 71% of the population with more money, more supplies, having ownership of 71% of the railroad mileage, and 86% of the manufacturing plants, and 92% of the industrial work. While the South believes in holding humans captive and forcing them and their children to do backbreaking labor. Join the Union for a free America today. My name is Abraham Lincoln, and I approve this message.
The Confederacy, where dreams come true. While the Northern Union attacks your rights to property, here in the Confederacy, we are here to say, no fear, America. Keep your property. We will fight for it with our outstanding generals and highly motivated soldiers. And with the support of the second best country behind us, England, we shall beat the Union. Join the Confederacy to protect what's yours. My name is Robert E. Lee, and I approve this message.
So after watching those commercials, the question is, which side do you choose, America? Alright, so now we're going to have another reenactment of the deadline. As you know, we love our reenactments here at Civil 1865, so we'll cut right to that. Hopefully it's right. Hey! Stop right there, prisoner! Pew, 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 pew!
Do you have any knowledge about what happened with William T. Sherman's Union forces' occupation of Atlanta, Georgia in September of 1864?
Yes, I did hear a little bit about that. Didn't he bring the Federal cavalry columns in easy striking distance of Andersonville? But the Confederate authorities moved most of the prisoners out of Andersonville and to other camps in South Carolina and coastal Georgia.
Yeah, you got it. All the prisoners were moved, but the Union got pretty close to you. David, back at the newsroom, I believe there has been another piece of exciting news for us.
Yeah, you got that right, Maddie. We've been lucky enough to score a third reenactment of the day. A new record. We are going to be reenacting William T. Sherman's forces occupation.
I'm General William T. Sherman. Prepare to die.
Oh no!
Pew, 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 pew. Where are all the prisoners?
Thank you so much for interviewing with us today, Sam. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to spread the word about Andersonville Prison.
Thank you so much.
And that just about wraps it up for this week's edition of Civil 1865's take on the Andersonville Prison. Next week, we'll be interviewing Mr. Tangney on his Christmas vacation. Catch you next week. Stay classy, America.